Hello and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that didn't feel much like coming up with an opening joke, so here's this. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take a look at The Hunt from Salt and Pepper Games.
We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review.
In The Hunt from Salt and Pepper Games, two players take on the roles of either the German Kriegsmarine or the Royal Navy as they attempt to do battle in the South Atlantic in World War II. The game board is a map of the South Atlantic. Essentially, you have ports in Argentina, in Brazil, in South Africa, and in Great Britain. The game essentially is these convoys that are heading either from these other ports to Great Britain or from Great Britain to those other ports. And you, as the Royal Navy, are attempting to escort them to keep them safe. You've got task force groups that are out hunting for the Admiral Graf Spee, the German pocket battleship. Now, if you're playing the German player, you are essentially playing a game of hidden movement. On a separate piece of paper, you're going to be moving around the board, attempting to find those convoys and sink them. Now, you also have a supply ship which can aid you on your quest, but really, stealth here is the key. Now, the German player is actually going to have a little airplane token they'll put on the ready spot. They're also going to have a kind of a oil tracker token they're going to place kind of on the 0 spot down below. As I say, they're going to go ahead and get a piece of paper, and you've got a little shield behind which you can write down your location. You're going to place the alt mark, the German supply ship, on the board in a location of your choosing. And then the British player, they're also going to place their task force groups out on the board. The British player will also place his convoy ships into a bag from which he will draw those at various times in the game. Now, the British have a track, and that track is going to say exactly when more task forces, more of their ships can come into play to help them track down the Admiral Graf Spee. Now, each player starts with a hand of 5 cards. Now, these cards have essentially 2 aspects to them. They have kind of an action point value in the top left, and then they have an event. Now, generally, all things being equal, on your turn, a player can play that card either for the action points or they can play it for the event. Now, for the German, if he plays it for the action points, he can move his ship a number of spaces. He can move the Admiral Graf Spee a number of spaces, and he tracks that on his hidden piece of paper. He can write down what location he is moving to, what numbered location he is moving to. He can also, essentially, if he finds himself in a location with a convoy, he can do a search action. Now, if he does a search action, he has to reveal himself. He places his token on the board, and then essentially he rolls the die to determine whether or not he actually finds that ship. All things being equal, he's going to roll. He wants to roll a 5 or a 6. Now, he has that airplane. He can launch the airplane. That gives him a dice roll modifier, an advantage, but then the plane comes back and it is unready. Now, if the Admiral Graf Spee finds the convoy, then they go ahead, they sink the convoy, and they put that kind of in their victory pile. If the Graf Spee still has movement points left, they can go ahead and move away. Now, at the end of the turn, they're going to fill up their hand size. Now, if the Graf Spee is away from its supply ship, it's only going to bring its hand size up to 3, I believe. And if it is adjacent to the alt mark, to its supply ship, it can go ahead and bring its hand up to 5. This is something that can tip the hand about where you are located to the British. Now, the Germans can also bank some of their AP by putting it on their track. They can go ahead and claim, I think, up to 2 AP that they can then use in a subsequent turn. Now, the very first thing the British player can do is move their freight ships one space closer to their destination. Now the British can move as well, and typically for both sides, movement is like I think it's one space for one, two for two, but then it's four for three. So it kind of grows there, how many points you're spending versus how far you're moving. But the British, they can go ahead and then they can play their cards either for the point value or for their events. And sometimes there's mandatory events to play that card. You have to play it for the event. But you go ahead and they can move to locations where they think the Admiral Graf spray is. They can go ahead, they can search, they can hunt. Again, all things being equal, that's going to be on a 5 or a 6, but they can also get some modifiers. Now, if they find the Graf spray, that's immediately going to trigger a battle. More on that in a minute. The British can also spend AP for intelligence. Essentially, they can boost their search ability. They can also force the German player to put out hint markers, essentially close to they have to be, I think, be with adjacent, either on or adjacent to where the location of the Admiral Graf spray is, to kind of tip off the British about where they should be looking. The British player can also spend 2 AP to advance their task forces along their track in order to bring them closer to getting out in the ocean and helping them assist in hunting down the Graf spray. Now, if at any time the British succeed in finding the Admiral Graf spray, you immediately go to the battle phase. Essentially, what's going to happen is both the German and the British player are going to be playing cards back and forth, and they're going to be dealing damage based on the number on those cards. They're going to be dealing damage to the other side. You can also play some cards for their battle effects, and their battle effects can have kind of important consequences. Now, the battle takes place over the course of 5 rounds. At the end of the 5 rounds, whoever has dealt a killing blow or who has done the most damage to their enemy, they immediately win the game. Otherwise, if the Germans are able to sink 5 of the British convoys, or if the British are able to get all of their convoys home safely, or 5 of their convoys home safely, then that player wins the hunt. So the hunt is a hidden movement game. It's kind of a clever amalgamation of a hidden movement game and a war game, kind of a lighter hidden movement game and then a pretty serious war game. The way you play the cards, it's very reminiscent of an operational points versus event cards that you see in a ton of games and CDGs and what have you. It is also somewhat reminiscent the way, I don't know, the gameplay reminded me a lot of like Watergate too, which also I think has a lot of similarities to a war game. But here, you've got some really cool and interesting events, and it's really one of those games. Do I play this card for the event? Do I play it for the operational points? What's going to benefit me more? So there's some really cool choices there, and I really appreciated that aspect of the game. I do think this game is not the most balanced. I do think that from what I've seen, I do think that the British do have a slight advantage. I've got to play the game some more to really see if that's the case, because that's just kind of my gut feeling. I've only played it a few times, and I need to play it some more to see if that's the case. But that's kind of my gut feeling. Haven't seen the Germans win yet. And yet still, there's something very compelling about this. And like all hidden movement games, there's that tension. And there's the frustration you have as the British. And then there's that just, are they going to find me, of the Germans. But the Germans have to reveal themselves from time to time if they want to sink the ships, which is a victory condition. That's what they're there for. So it's a very interesting, there's some very interesting choices here. Very interesting puzzle that you're trying to work out here that I really appreciate, that I really enjoyed. Now, I got to tell you, with regards to the components to the production here, it's beautiful. I think the board is beautiful. I think the artwork here on the cards and everything is wonderful. It's from, I believe it's the same artist that did Resist, which is just phenomenal. I think it's beautiful. I love it so much. I love the artwork here so much. And then the gameplay, too, is very fun. Very, very fun. Very cat and mouse. But with regard to the components, there is one big caveat I've got, and that is I really don't like games that in order to play the game, you have to use things from outside the game. Meaning here, you need a paper and a pen. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but I really don't like games that force you to do it. If I'm going to buy a game, I want to buy a complete game. I don't want to know that, oh, I don't have a pen, or a pen isn't handy, or I don't have some paper to write on. I don't want to have to deal with that. I want a complete game. It's a minor point, but I think it's a significant one as well. Now, with all this said, I really do like this game. I really do like this game. I have had fun even when I lose playing this game. But I do, like I say, I want to figure out if there is, if it really is unbalanced. And I'll tell you this right now, even if it is unbalanced, as long as there is a legitimate chance of the Germans winning, I'd still say this is a game worth getting. Um, I don't mind games that are asymmetrical and favor one player, as long as you kind of know that going into it, right? And I think there's kind of stuff here that tells you, well, the British have got the advantage, so that's fine. Uh, because of that, I was debating, should I say try it before you buy it? But I'm like, you know what? It's still so much fun. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna say buy it. I really like the hunt. I'm gonna continue to play it and have fun with it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, I ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. I'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history, books on history. I even upload some of my lectures on that channel. Please go ahead, please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. It would mean a lot to me. And I'd ask you to please leave a thumb to this video on Board Game Geek. That also helps us out a lot as well. And if you are a fan of the channel, I'd ask you to please go ahead and click on our Super Thanks button here on the YouTube page and consider leaving a contribution. We would really appreciate it. You know, during World War II, a Royal Navy captain and his ship actually hit a mine off the coast of Germany. He got on the radio and he said, "Mayday, Mayday, we're sinking, we're sinking." And then a German voice appeared on the radio and said, "What are you thinking about?"
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love the
She's billing herself as a silent.
Yo, what the heck?
We're all dead.
So, wow. Wow. So that's the game.
Everybody, great game, everybody.